Hey, it's Tom, and I have a few things I want to talk about. So, this is a little different than all of my cooking videos because, as you might have noticed, you never see my face in my cooking videos. And that's because I was trying to create a vibe. Remember that show with Tim Allen called Tooltown? There was that neighbor on the other side of the fence. His name is Wilson. You never saw his face. I was trying to be Wilson. And I don't know if anybody ever caught that. Well, actually, you would probably never expect that unless I explained it to you. Okay, that aside, why am I wearing this jacket? Well, I'm wearing this jacket because I actually did go here. I went there in the summer of 1997 for a 22-week course called La Technique. Now, the reason why I did that is because I always loved to cook, but there were certain things I didn't know, certain things I didn't understand. Like, I would try to make beef stock at home. So, you'd look up a recipe, and this is before the internet, this is before YouTube, but, you'd look up a recipe in some book, and you do what you think the instructions said, and you'd come up with something, but you don't know if it's really correct. So, the thing that going to the French Culinary Institute, FCI, in Lower Manhattan, was for me was a few things. I wanted to gain some technique. I wanted to gain some basic skills. And I wanted to know if I was doing certain things correctly, like stock. So like, for example, veal stock. You can look in a book, or even now, you can go to YouTube and see somebody do it, but you don't know if it smells right, and you don't know if it tastes right. So by going there, I was able to get the full experience. So that's why I did it. And then those techniques are what I use going forward. That all said, I love, love, love to go to different restaurants. And sometimes I'm very surprised by something that's awesome. And when it's awesome, I'm thinking, well, shit, I could do that at home. Well, can I? Well, so for example, I'm convinced that I can't make White Castle hamburgers at home. I probably can. If I really put my noodle to it, I bet you I can come up with something that's close to what they do. Right? I don't think I can make these in my own kitchen. I probably can. But, I don't know. So, when I go to a restaurant, I will remember, or try to remember, the texture, the taste, the smell, and then I'll go home and I'll Google some recipes, and I'll try to figure out, based on what I'm reading, what matches the flavor profile of what I tasted most closely. And then I'll combine some things, some different recipes together to come up with what I tasted at that place. And then I'll keep trying to do it until I get what I think I remember I tasted. All good? Good. So, now, why am I here doing this now? Well, in 1989, I was on a consulting project in Japan. And I was supposed to spend a month there. I wound up spending 6 months there. While there, I had a lot of first-time things happen to me. I visited Thailand, and the very first time I ever had Thai food was in Thailand. It was awesome. The hottest food I ever tasted, spicy-wise, delicious. I went to Hong Kong. Great food there. But in Japan, I discovered that everything, whether it was Japanese food or some other Asian type of food, it was better than what I had in the States. And that kind of makes sense, right? But the very, very first time I ever had Indian food was in Japan. One of the guys that I met through one of the guys I was working with, the guy that I was working with, his name is Joe Lombardozzi. Shout out to Joe. The guy I met, his name was Eddie Parker. He was from Ocala, Florida. Fucking redneck. Yeah. Redneck, hardcore redneck. Which is interesting because his last name is Parker, so I have to believe he was Jewish, but he was hardcore redneck. Anyhow, Eddie took me to my very first Indian restaurant. So here we are in the middle of Tokyo, in a little section of Tokyo called Roppongi, And they spell it R-O-P-O-N-G-I, but they pronounce it kind of with an L, and we'll get into that another time. Anyhow, we get to this Indian restaurant, and it's a bunch of us. It was him and a bunch of his friends and me. So I'm meeting all these people for the first time. And they ordered a bunch of things. I know nothing about Indian food, and I have to say, my first time eating at this restaurant, the name of the restaurant was Moti, M-O-T-I. And I believe they have a few, it was not a chain, but there were a few family-owned restaurants throughout Japan called Moti. And I actually met the owner's son. His name was Anjan Mitra. I have to say, the first time I had Indian food, I hated it. Hated it. Why did I go back? I went back because I wanted to bring Joe there to see the look on his face when he tasted this horrific food. So now we go back. And I have to say, the second time I had it, wasn't so bad. Then I went back one more time. That's 3 times. And I loved it. Now, I don't think you should apply that rule to everything you do in life, right? I mean, you know, I expect that's how people get hooked on cocaine, right? Maybe, I don't know. But for cuisine, I highly recommend that even if you try something and don't like it the first time, maybe you ought to give it a second shot. Anyhow, so now I'm craving Indian food, right? Here I am in Japan. I know how to get the moti. Cool. And one of my two, I mean, I tasted a lot of things there. I like a lot of different things. I like bindi masala. I like kima matar. But my 2 favorite things, like when I go to an Indian restaurant and I judge them on the sag gosht or sag paneer, right? But I like the gosht. So that's lamb with spinach. It's the spinach sauce. It's friggin' awesome. And the first time I ever had butter chicken was at Moti, and they made an awesome butter chicken. Apparently, according to Anjan, butter chicken is a lot easier to make than sag gosht. But I wouldn't say that it's easier. What I would say is that the butter chicken is less time consuming than the sag gosht, because the lamb has to cook longer and the flavors have to blend longer. But again, I get home now, and the restaurants I go to in the States, the butter chicken sucks. I have found a few restaurants in the United States where I did like the butter chicken, but it was nothing like the butter chicken I had at Moti. So now I'm at a little bit of a quandary. Sometimes I'll have the sag at some restaurants here in New Jersey or in the States somewhere, and it's good or it's not so good. Now again, I'm judging all of this based on my white guy palate and what I tasted in Japan. But I have to say, look, if you're running an Indian restaurant in Tokyo and it's popular, it's probably pretty damn good. I would have to say in the United States, maybe my favorite Indian restaurant was in New York City, downtown. The place was called Salam Bombay. And there they had some really good food. But again, you know, the butter chicken is hit or miss, and the sag gosht is how I judge the place. If you're not making good sag or good palak, then I'm not happy with the place. Interestingly enough, this is Trader Joe's. This box of palak paneer costs $5, and it's friggin', I like it. I like it a lot, and I like it better than almost every restaurant I've been to in New Jersey that makes some kind of palak. Trader Joe's, $5. Okay, so why are we here? We're here because I'm really just annoyed with going to Indian restaurants. It's just annoying to me because I believe they're overpriced, and a lot of times the product is not that great. Tell you another quick little story, and then we're going to get into it. Okay, so my son went to Berkeley, the 5-week summer program at Berkeley when he was 15 years old. Okay, he's a drummer, and you know what? We were lucky enough to send him up there. He had a freaking great time, And my wife and I enjoyed hanging out in Boston, especially that neighborhood. That neighborhood of Boston, Back Bay, is an awesome neighborhood. So we're walking down the street, and of course, you know, we're going to have New England food. Of course we're going to have New England food. But we were walking up the steps to one of these Indian restaurants. And as we're walking up the steps, I hear some guy, obviously of Indian persuasion, maybe Pakistani, I don't know, but he looked Indian. And he's saying to his friends that his place is no good. So now I'm curious, right? So I approached the guy, because I'm that guy. And I said, okay, I just heard you tell your friends this place is not so good. Would you be nice enough to recommend a place that you like better than this place? And without hesitation, he looks at me and he said, well, it might be okay for you. You fucking racist motherfucker. Don't be judging me by the way I look. Hey, I like food, all kinds of food. And I hate guys like that guy. So, now that I've gotten all that off my chest, today we're making sag gosht, and we're going to make butter chicken. But here's the thing. I'm not actually going to finish the butter chicken today. All I'm going to do is marinate the chicken today. And then I'll finish that.